They called him a toy soldier, just a tomb guard in a fancy uniform, standing stiff in the National Mall's spring sunlight. The NATO soldiers smirked, their laughter sharp, slicing through the Memorial Day crowd. "Look at that guy," one scoffed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Probably never held a real rifle." But under the tomb guard's collar, a silver gray patch glinted, unnoticed by the mockers, unseen by the tourists snapping photos. What they didn't know, what they couldn't imagine, was that the man they ridiculed had once walked through hell in a Syrian desert, carrying his dying team through gunfire. And the only person who knew the truth, a French general with a chest full of medals, was already crossing the mall, her eyes locked on that patch, ready to silence the laughter with a story no one was prepared to hear. Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that values like honor, courage, and sacrifice still matter, join us in keeping their legacy alive. The National Mall stretched out under a clear May sky, the kind of spring day in Washington, D.C. that made the monuments gleam like they were carved yesterday. It was Memorial Day, 2025, and the air carried the weight of ceremony. Flags snapping in the breeze, the faint hum of a distant crowd, and the sharp cadence of military boots on pavement. Near the Lincoln Memorial, a formation of soldiers stood in perfect alignment, their uniforms a patchwork of nations, the dark greens and blues of NATO allies from France, Germany, and the Netherlands, alongside the crisp navy blue of a single American tomb guard. The crowd, families, veterans, tourists, watched from behind velvet ropes, their phones raised to capture the spectacle of an international ceremony honoring those who'd fallen in Allied operations. Sergeant Nathan Brooks stood third from the left, his tomb guard uniform immaculate, navy blue coat, white gloves, black kepi hat tilted just so. At 35, he was older than most in the formation, his face weathered in a way that spoke of years spent under harsher suns than this one. A faint scar traced his jaw, barely noticeable unless you knew what shrapnel looked like up close. His eyes steady and unblinking, fixed on a point in the distance, as if he could see through the crowd, through the city, to a place no one else could name. Beneath his collar, hidden from view, a small silver gray patch pressed against his skin, a relic from a life most here would never understand. The ceremony was meant to be a show of unity, a nod to NATO's shared sacrifices, but not everyone saw it that way. Captain Lucas Schmidt, a German officer with a lean frame and a smirk that seemed stitched to his face, stood a few rows back with his unit. His blonde hair caught the sunlight as he leaned toward a Dutch soldier, his voice carrying just far enough to be heard. "Look at that guy," he said, nodding toward Nathan, the American in the fancy costume. "What do they call them? Tomb guards? More like parade dolls. I bet he's never fired a shot in his life." A few of his men chuckled, their laughter sharp and careless, like kids tossing stones into a pond without checking what was beneath the surface. Nathan didn't flinch. He couldn't, not in this formation where every movement was choreographed to perfection. But the words landed, heavy as they were, and something in his breathing shifted. A slight hitch, controlled, like a man who'd learned to stay calm when the world was screaming. The Dutch soldier, a young private with a nervous glance, muttered, "Maybe keep it down, Captain. People are watching." Schmidt waved him off. "Relax, Peter. It's not like they can hear us. Besides, this is all for show. Back home, we're running live fire drills while these guys play dress up for tourists." A French sergeant, older than the rest, with a face that looked like it had seen actual service, shifted uncomfortably. He whispered something to his comrade in rapid French, his eyes flicking toward Nathan. The comrade, a woman with lieutenant spars, nodded but said nothing, her expression tight. Schmidt, though, was just warming up. He'd noticed something, a glint of silver gray fabric peeking from under Nathan's collar, not part of the regulation uniform. His grin widened. "Check that out," he said, loud enough for the nearby crowd to turn their heads. "What's that under his collar? Some kind of good luck charm? Maybe his mom sewed it on to keep him safe while he marches in circles." The crowd stirred, some tourists smiling uncertainly, others frowning at the loud German officer. A few snapped photos, their cameras clicking like cicadas. Nathan's face remained stone, but his fingers, hidden by his gloves, tightened slightly around the ceremonial rifle. The French sergeant muttered again, this time loud enough for Schmidt to hear. "That patch? I've seen it before, in a briefing maybe. It's not just decoration." Schmidt laughed, stepping closer to the rope barrier separating the formation from the crowd. A briefing? Come on, Marcel. It's probably something he picked up at a gift shop. These guys are actors, not soldiers. Real soldiers are out there running ops, making decisions that actually matter. The words cut through the air, sharp and deliberate, and the crowd's murmur grew. A family